It's better? Okay,
It
perfect.
is.
All right. Well, let me go ahead and start from the beginning then if my sound is better.
Okay.
We're going to get this going, I promise, guys. Thanks for hanging in there with me. All right, so welcome to March's Lunch and Learn. Again, we want to thank our sponsor, Charter West Bank. They will be speaking here shortly, and then we will have Promise Partners up. So at this time, I'll go ahead and we're going to jump into that itinerary. So I will just go over a few things that are happening with workforce with the Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce. And then we have, I believe we have Bree with us today. If she's not on, I will kind of give you an overview of the Association of the Iowa Workforce Partners so that you guys can consider joining that group with us. We're doing some great things, and I really think that if you're on this call because workforce is important to you, that this might be an organization that you'd also like to join. We will then hear from our sponsors, Tim at Charter West Bank. We'll hear from Karen with Promise Partners on an exciting new initiative that they have called Lemonade for Life. And then we will close our meeting today. So jumping right into workforce, just to recap kind of where we are and why we are doing these lunch and learns. In 2019, a group of HR managers and councilists got together and they really did some awesome focus groups, sent out some surveys to try to figure out what the challenges are for workforce in Council Bluffs. And what they came up with was that the current turnover rate for the associate or the businesses that participated in the surveys was at 33% or higher. They need to increase the number of people participating in the labor pool. Currently, it was at 66%. So how do we get that to go up? And just so you guys know, these aren't issues that are just unique to us. They are kind of statewide and even in some other states. Statewide, there's only about 65% of individuals participating in the labor pool that can participate in the labor pool. The next challenge was increasing brain gain. They discovered that less than 40% of those that are in the workforce have continued education beyond high school or any certifications. And then how do we get more fully funded apprenticeship programs? So those are the 4 challenges that we have. They then came up with what they call our workforce ecosystem. And they put some very specific like tasks in play of how we can start to address those. The first one was this lunch and learn, where we can all come together and listen to professionals tell us about resources or professional development that we can gain every month. We also want to become a work-ready community. So work-ready communities work with the ACT to get individuals their NCRC. And the NCRC is the National Career Readiness Certification. And to recognize that is free for your business and really is something that you should consider joining. We'll talk about that a little bit more here soon. The next thing that we wanted to do was create a best places to work program, which we were able to do, and it is going right now, and that is called our Unbelievable Workplaces CB. And that program is you receive a unique survey and you send that out to your associates to really gauge what the culture of your workforce is. That, like I said, is currently open and it will close at the end of the month, and then we will be able to award the businesses that participated and get them that label of an unbelievable workplace in Council Bluffs. And then next, how do we work with work lab initiatives? So there are a couple of opportunities here. There is Grow out of Omaha, where they will actually put a navigator on site inside of your business. And that navigator will really help your associates with any challenges that they have inside of with their life so that it doesn't affect their work life. And then the next one is Bridges Out of Poverty, where they really help kind of give your workers that education that they need to advance in their work. And then they kind of help, again, navigate them with their regular life. So we're going to go over the updates of where we are with all of those. And we're going to talk about the ACT being a recognized business. If you're not a recognized business, I would highly encourage you to go to the website, and I will send this presentation out to everybody afterwards. So you'll have the link there. Again, it is free to enroll and say that you are a recognized business. And what that means is that if an associate comes to the door and applies and they tell you that they are an NCRC holder, you will ask for that certification. And you can use that certification to see if they have the basic skills to start off correctly in that position. So it's going to give you 3 categories, and it's an aptitude test that they will take. And so that test will tell you how they use work documents, their problem solving skills, and their applied math. And so it's going to tell you where they are in those 3 areas. And you can use that with your job with your job to see where they should be to qualify for that position. So it's really an amazing tool that, again, it is free for you to utilize. I would highly encourage you to just check it out. Professional development workshops that we have going on right now. They're called New and Emerging Leaders, and it is actually a business ethics workshop from Business Ethics Alliance. And we are in it right now for March. And then we had our next series available for June. That next series actually has one seat left available. So if it's something that you're interested in, I would highly encourage you to jump on today onto our website, go to our events, go to June and click on that New and Emerging Leaders and get yourself registered, because there is one seat left. We are considering having one in September. We haven't clarified that yet. So again, don't hesitate if you're interested in joining that. The next thing that we're going to chat about, and I am going to read you a little bit here, is about healthy hometowns. And let me just change this real quick so I can see. Let me see here. Apologize, guys. All right. Oh, that's not working. All right, so healthy hometowns actually is something that the 712 initiative is taking part in right now. And they are getting ready to kick off some amazing initiatives. So health is important to all of us. Despite our best efforts, we don't always make or have access to the best choices. That's why Council Bluffs has taken more steps to change that through Healthy Hometowns, powered by Wellmark. Healthy Hometowns is working with us to identify tactics that we can use to thrive. The initiative convened by the 712 initiative, that's kind of a tongue twister, right? Has 3 areas for our community to focus on. And that is eat well, move more, and feel better. The areas are developed in the 5 places where health is most impactful: our community, our schools, our healthcare, retail foods, and our work sites. So one of the ways that we hope to improve health and wellness is through our worksite collaborative. The purpose of worksite wellbeing collaborative is to provide a forum for these organizational leaders to provide wellness professionals and other interested parties can collaborate and share best practices in the workplace to promote healthy behaviors for all of their employees. And so this is a new initiative. Can you guys still see my screen here? These kind of presentations or slides here. So this is a new initiative that we will be rolling out soon, and we will be inviting all of you to join this cause once we get some surveys in place. And so what we really hope to do is collect a group of businesses and get you to survey your associates to find out if there are healthy things in place at work and what other healthy initiatives you can put in place at work. Like, is there an option for healthier foods at lunch? Is there an option for them to get outside and walk sometimes? Is there an option for them to walk to work? So there are a lot of things that we can survey with them, and then we can give you some very specific action steps so you can kind of implement those into your workplace. So just be on the lookout for that. We do have a meeting next week with a few individuals to get this ready to go, and we'll probably talk about it more in our April Lunch and Learn. So next, here is the ACT, kind of some updates on that for you. This is at Work Ready Communities. If you register here at workreadycommunities.org/IA/155, you can register your business, and you'll see here that there are over 5,000 holders of the NCRC. So a great way for you to find a person right away and get them into that position. This is a little bit about that new and emerging leaders we already went over. Registration for that is only $120, and that does include their lunch. And so really, I've done a lot of research. I don't know if you could find a better professional development workshop series for less. So great opportunity for yourself to invest in yourself, or for you to invest in one of your leaders. And we do call this new and emerging leaders because it's a great place for your new leaders to get their ethics in line and to learn how to lead a team. But this is also great for seasoned leaders. Right now we have our March workshop going on. We've got a lot of seasoned leaders in there who love the workshop, and really, actually yesterday they encouraged me to think about consider renaming it so that people know that it's not just for new leaders. So please don't feel like if you are a seasoned leader that this isn't for you. You absolutely can take this course. All right, and do we have Bree on with us? Let me see here. I don't see Bree. So I will give a quick update, but the Association of Iowa Workforce Partners, if you guys are interested in joining this group, we meet once a month, but we do have some very specific priorities that we've been kind of advocating for with our lobbyists about providing more funds for education, for work-based learning programs, for childcare. So we are a great organization really working towards bettering our workforce. We've got some professional development. So it's something that you guys might consider joining. And if you want more information, feel free to email me, or again, I will be sending these slides out to you afterwards. So you can email Bree afterwards. And that brings us to Tim with Charter West Bank. Tim, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. So if you would like to, you can do that.
All right, we'll figure this out on the fly. All right, I assume you can see me. I can no longer see you. Does that look right, Alicia?
Yes, it does. Yep.
Perfect. All right, because when I went full screen, it took it away. So
we
my
don't
name
see
is.
your screen anymore, though. Are you
What's
sharing?
that?
Are you sharing your screen? Because we don't see that.
You don't.
No.
I am. Hold on.
And I just realized that my camera stopped working, so I do apologize, but at least my sound is working, so I'm going to leave that alone.
Am I screen sharing now where you can actually see the PowerPoint?
You are sharing your screen, yes.
Woohoo! You would think 1 year into this I'd be able to figure it out, but apparently not. My name is Timothy Johansen. I work with Charter West Bank. Charlene Pierce is also on the meeting today. She also is an employee of ours in the business banking office. And when I went to put this presentation together around workforce, really racked my brain on how to find a way to really hit a broad audience. And so hopefully I'll do that today, but ultimately my goal would be that you have my contact information at the end of this if you have specific questions on how we could potentially help you with workforce, that you'd reach out directly. But like I said, my name is Timothy Johansen, born and raised here in the Omaha, Council Bluffs area. Started in banking in 1999 and started with Charter West in 2019. And married, recently had a daughter back in December of 2020. So the last 3 months, pandemic-wise and new fatherhood, has been a real experience for me. But you may know me partially because I actually serve on the Council Bluffs Chamber Board, as well as I am the board chair for Habitat for Humanity in Council Bluffs. Little quick snippet about our bank. We were founded in 1985 out of West Point, Nebraska, largely because the banks in the area did not understand the community that our bank needed to serve. And so our owner, Steve House, as well as a handful of community members, pooled their assets together to start our bank in 1985. He was a local car dealer, ship owner, and the larger banks didn't understand the agriculture / West Point market. And so in 1985, they started the bank. We have 5 branches throughout the area and 12 mortgage branches as well throughout the Nebraska market. And so, as I said, when I started putting this presentation together last weekend, I really struggled with coming up with specific ideas because I didn't know exactly who the audience would be. And so I ended up focusing more on why you should bank locally than anything else, because that truly is going to be your largest impact for helping your workforce throughout your community. And so a couple quick points that I'm going to go over. The first being injecting money into your local economy. The second, fueling economic growth in your community. The third is establishing a relationship with local decision makers. Then the fourth thing I wanted to go over, just because over the past probably 9 months, it's been a really quote unquote hot topic, and we've done a ton of them. And I assume most banks have. Just an update on where the SBA PPP loans are at this point in time. At any point, if you do have questions, feel free to use the chat feature. I may not see it, but Charlene is on the call and she'll make sure to interrupt me if needed. So as I said, The first point, injecting money into the local economy. So I've worked for various community banks as well as large Fortune 500 banks during my 20+ year career. And the biggest thing that I've realized, and the reason I keep drawing back to working at a community bank, is just the true impact that you have on your local economy. And so when you bank, either personally or business-wise, at a community bank, you essentially are injecting money into the local economy that you live and work in. And so therefore, when you're putting money into the bank, that money is going directly back out to help support other businesses in the area as well as drive their workforce. Like I said, the deposits make it possible for the local community bank to lend money out, whether it be for buying real estate, working capital needs, buying equipment, maybe an operating line of credit, but it's directly in the community that you live and play. According to the Federal Reserve Small Business Credit Survey, and this was in 2019, community banks showed a 18% higher satisfaction rate from customers that worked with community banks opposed to your large national banks. Like I said, fueling economic growth in your community. So this stat was actually staggering to me. I would not have been able to guess this off the top of my head, but ended up doing some research. And community banks, fund over 60% of the small business loans nationwide. The staggering part, in my opinion, is while they fund over 60% of those small business loans, they only hold 15% of the deposits nationwide. So when you're walking down Main Street in Omaha, Council Bluffs, or any small community throughout the nation, 60% of the loans that your mom and pop businesses are obtaining are really coming from those community banks, even though they're not holding most of the deposits from those businesses. And it's even more staggering if you live in an agricultural community, which West Point largely is. 82% of the small business ag loans are done by community banks. To me, that is just astonishing and tells you what really is the backbone of financing for our community mom and pop businesses. And then overall workforce wise, approximately 765,000 Americans are employed by community banks. And the thing that I really like to hang my hat on is not only that, but our upper level staff and management reside in the communities that we live and work in as well. This one I think has hit home often with individuals that I work with, trying to find financing needs that started potentially with a larger bank, then end up finding a smaller community bank that understands the market they're in. And it never really comes to play until a business or a community goes through a hardship. And obviously we're seeing that over the last, year now. And so working with a local decision maker really comes into play because they understand the market that you're in. They may actually know you personally, to where a lot of times when you bank with a larger organization, your decision maker is on the East Coast, West Coast, or somewhere outside of where you work or where you operate as a business. They don't really understand the dynamics of that community specifically. And so therefore, it can be hard for them to understand and make a decision accordingly. You also typically will find faster decision makers just because, again, they don't have the red tape or the chains of command that they have to go through. And then also community bank branches are vital to the business model. So therefore, we actually saw it mid last year. A lot of your larger banks were closing branches because with the pandemic, things were shutting down, and it was a way for them to become a leaner business model. But in reality, the bank branches for a community bank are vital to their business model because they consider that community home, and closing up shop would be detrimental to what they're doing in that community. And so ultimately, those first three slides are really about understanding how a community bank is vital to the community you work in and how it's vital to creating a strong workforce as well as funding that strong workforce. The last handful of slides I'm going to go through pretty quick just because they're SBA updates, but I thought it was interesting information when I was pulling it up because we probably have well, I know the chamber has a wide variety of entity sizes and entity fields that they fall in. This is just various information about the SBA PPP loans through March 7th. And so you can really see who's been funding those loans. And again, my conversation about banking locally, you really see the number of the top here. So that's banks over 10 billion and banks under 10 billion in size. Similarly did a similar number of loans, but when you really look at the number of banks that are doing them, it's really driven by that local community bank. The dollar amounts are really essentially a wash as well. And then this here is by state, and it was interesting. I looked at Iowa, did about 2 billion in loans, over 58,000 total loans. Nebraska under that at about 39,000 loans at about 1.3 billion. And some of your larger populated states are obviously driving some of those numbers even higher. This was really interesting to me because when you look at the loan size, again, the program was really driven by your mom and pop funded loans because almost 74% of the loans were $50,000 or less. And that number, the loan size was really driven by payroll numbers. And so that tells you what size of business was really benefiting from the SBA PPP loan. And the overall average size loan was 68,000. I pulled our bank's PPP loan numbers this morning. We did about $7.5 million back through April of last year. As far as loan count, I didn't have a chance to check that, but I would believe we were probably in that same average loan size amount, if not slightly smaller. And the last slide, I think, is just by industry type. I find this interesting, again, just because the chamber has so many different industry types and just kind of shows you where that money went overall for the SBA PPP loans, and then the breakdown percentage-wise. So the last slide I have is just our contact information. Like I said, if you have specific questions, want to reach out, just have a conversation. Charlene, as well as my contact information is there. But outside of that, Alicia, I would turn it back over to you, and let me know if I have to stop the share or if you can take it over directly.
I think you just have to hit stop sharing.
Okay, I can do that. The big red button.
It puts us right back to the whole group viewing. Thanks so much, Tim and Charter West Bank for sponsoring today and then for giving us those great updates. It is really amazing and astonishing to see how many loans come from your local banking institution. So I hope that you guys consider making sure that that information is available for your workforce. Sometimes those are little key pieces that you can give your workforce that they might not know about, that they aren't educated in, and it really helps them kind of get established. Maybe they can then set up like a direct deposit. Those areas are all new to some of your workforce, especially if you have those entry level positions that they maybe have not dealt with this for a while. So that's great information, Tim, and I really appreciate it. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Karen, and Karen is going to be presenting Promise Partners today. And again, she's going to be sharing some very new information with us. We're all kind of the test dummies for this today. So we are going to want some feedback from you guys on how the presentation goes. This is new information that we have come together to collect for you as a resource for your workforce. And it's called Lemonades for Life. And what that really comes down to is how do you take the lemons that you've been handed in life and make lemonade? So how do you help your associates thrive in the workplace and at home? And so I'm going to turn it over to Karen, and Karen's going to present for you guys.
Great, thanks. And now I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm so happy we're all on the same page with these Zoom meetings, right? From getting logged on to sharing our screens. Okay.
I feel like even through all the troubles this morning, we are now rolling fully ahead.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, and thank you so much for sharing that. This is the first time we're rolling it out to a group, and we could not think of a better group than through the chamber and these lunch and learns. We absolutely do want your feedback. And I'll just jump right in because it is some new information. Can everyone see? I'll start the slideshow. Is everyone looking at one big slide that says Lemonade for Life on it?
We sure are, Karen.
All right, perfect. That's checkbox 1, right?
Yeah.
Well, great. So again, thanks, Alicia, and to the Chamber for having me here today. And I'm just so excited to share this information with you. My name is Karen Allen, and I work with Promise Partners. You may have heard of them, of course. They are a local convener and communicator for local family and community services in the area. And they are, our focus is within early childhood, but really you'll see, hopefully, through this presentation, that what happens to us in early childhood is something that we really carry throughout life. So that's just the information that I'm going to share today. And I work with a group now of local leaders, again, mostly in that nonprofit community services segment of our community. And we're just working on addressing and educating about the lifelong effects of childhood trauma and building a resilient, thriving community. And then folding that into what does that mean for workforce? We want a resilient and thriving workforce, of course, too. In the work we do, we see firsthand some of the physical and mental health challenges and family issues that your employees may unwittingly bring to work. They're experiencing them, of course, outside of work or even in their childhood, but that comes with them to work. Today, I just want to share some insights to what might be causing some of those challenges and also help you start turning those challenges into something sweeter by taking steps to support yourselves and your employees. And again, I'm just going to say it up front. I actually had planned to say it later in the presentation, but I'm going to say it up front. We're talking small steps to begin with. So we're not talking about any great sweeping reform at work, but we want to provide you some, like I said, some background and then some small steps you can take. Lemonade for Life is that campaign that emphasizes that lemons, we all may experience in life, can become lemonade when we work together to improve the well-being of our families and our workplaces and our community. By the end of the presentation, I'm going to offer some ways you can support a stronger and more consistent, resilient workforce, and that will in turn help you improve your team's productivity and engagement in meeting your goals. Okay, question for all of you, either in the chat box, Lacey, if you can help me take a peek at that, or just take yourselves off mute. When you're stressed, where do you physically feel that in your body? We all get stressed. We all have similar reactions. Who wants to share where they feel that physically? I see some. Great. Yes, head and neck. Yep. Any fellow migraine folks there?
I apologize. I was chatting and I was on mute still. Yes, Karen. There's another one that says the neck, shoulders, and head.
Yeah, stomach for sure, right? Butterflies, good and bad. Yeah, absolutely. So you've covered most of them, and it's the standards, right? Sweating, increased heart rate, tensed muscles, stomach or headache. Those are the ways our bodies tell us, hey, something's up. Our bodies are just hardwired to physically respond to situations that we're exposed to. That way we know if we need to outrun something or stand and defend, right? The flight or fight. Now, when we're exposed to those stressors periodically or in small doses, stress comes into everyone's lives. Periodically, small doses, we can respond appropriately. That's what that physical response is for. And then our bodies can undergo a secondary process when the danger disappears, kind of that cooling down. This physical period of recovery brings us back to normal function. But think about this. When we feel significant stress that is prolonged, or it's unpredictable when and where it's going to come from, or without support to bring us back to that calming area, response or on, that switch just stays on, right? It's on at all times, and our bodies may not recover. So that level of stress makes sense, can become toxic and impact our ability to function. For some employees, and you may have seen this, when they experience this ongoing and significant level of stress now, or even, like I mentioned previously in their lives, it's impacting their ability to be present at work, focused on the task at hand, or work collaboratively with others. Luckily, there's a lot that we can do. Because just as we know stress impacts all of us, we know that supportive relationships, a sense of purpose and drive, and access to services and help and resources, those can all buffer us from those negative impacts of stress. So again, the good point is, yes, people are feeling this. Yes, there are reactions, but that's not the end of the story. Our brains have been described as having plasticity. I don't know if anyone has heard of that, or if anyone's a science buff and has learned a little bit about that, but that just means we are capable of adapting and forming new connections. And that can improve our well-being at any age. There's still hope for all of us, basically. So even if we have experienced trauma in the past, we can still find ways to not only heal, but to thrive in our present and moving forward. So thinking back to that, thinking back to how your bodies react to stress, how do you physically react? Now, what I want to ask you is, in those stressful moments, who or what do you turn to? Who or what helps you cope with that stress and in recovering from that stressful time? Where does your recovery come from? Is it something you do? Is it someone you reach out to? Some folks even kind of have a standard that they go through. So what are some of yours? Exercise and family? Absolutely. Therapy? Good, yes. What else? There's lots. Thank goodness we are dynamic, right? And in the last year, we've learned a whole lot more about our coworkers and our friends. Oh, writing and journaling, that's a fabulous one too. So yeah, as you can see, we have those coping mechanisms, we have those supports, but it's different for everybody. And we each have different resources available to us. This is Iowa. I always say we moved back to Iowa. Really, I moved back to Iowa because I was raised here. But for my husband raised in the South, he moved to Iowa, and communities are different, right? A lot of small town communities, a lot of extended family lives nearby, and that may be your support system. But that's not always the case. So folks have other coping mechanisms. So these components, family, friends, exercise, reading, therapy, journaling, even going out for a drive, even road trips, right? All those different things, gosh, there are so many. Those are the components that make up your lemonade stand. Your handed lemons, that's your supportive lemonade stand, or your system of support that builds your strength, endurance, and resilience. So you can rely on that. So even in the back of your mind during those stressful times, you're thinking, that's okay. I have these supports to go to. So you can turn those hard times into lemonade. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the impact stress can have, and then I will also talk about how you can respond with your business. Sorry. Let me give you just a minute with that. And start off just kind of slowly. So one lens for understanding the impact of this toxic stress on our health and well-being is what some of you may have heard of. It's called the ACE study. ACE, or that ACE, stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, as you see right there in the middle, in that red circle. Now, the ACE study was conducted in the 1990s, which doesn't seem like that long ago, but it's a few years ago. It was done by Dr. Vincent Folletti with Kaiser Permanente and Dr. Robert Anda with the CDC. It was the largest study at the time that looked at the short and long-term impacts of cumulative childhood trauma. Adverse childhood experiences. So again, throughout this, and maybe in other resources and other meetings, and even just in articles you read, you may hear about ACEs. So that adverse childhood experiences, those were defined as a set of 10 incidents that dramatically upset the safe, nurturing environments children require to thrive. This study focused on just those 10 types of trauma occurring in the home, and they did include child abuse, neglect, household stressors, for example, mental illness, drug use, or separation and parental divorce. In the study, there were more than 17,000 adults, so not a small sample, 17,000 adults who were predominantly middle class, educated, and white that took the ACE survey. So again, if we think about that Southwestern, just beyond Council Bluffs, the whole Southwestern Iowa area, our folks have a lot in common with the people that were involved in this study, predominantly middle class, educated, and white that were participating in that study in the 1990s. Now, the study measured only if they had experienced a specific type of trauma in childhood, did not measure the frequency or severity of it. But next, with that data, they moved on, and through comprehensive physical and mental evaluations, Those researchers looked at the relationships between experiences of adversity, and then later health issues. Again, back to that physical reaction, right? Now, what does that mean if there's a list of these adverse events happening in childhood? What does that mean later in life? So the study's findings were shocking. Couple items, researchers found that ACEs are common. When we look at that whole list and you see there what it can turn into, but nearly 2/3 of their study participants experienced at least one of the 10 types of adverse experiences that they listed. And then as the number of ACEs increase, so if one person experienced 3, 4, 5, and more, so does the risk for a range of those physical and mental health issues that are listed there. Much of this data is national, but Iowa ACEs 360, that was a huge part of putting this slideshow and much more of our information together. They're a nonprofit organization. They've been studying the impact of ACEs on Iowa's population since 2012. They've been collecting data using the Iowa Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System. Easy to remember, right? But that's administered by the Iowa Department of Public Health in coordination with the CDC. So pretty amazing to look at that list of things and think, gosh, if someone had the struggles and that persistent stress in their childhood, these are the things that can culminate, later on in life. In Iowa, so as a state, in the fall of 2020, in the middle of that pandemic that we're hopefully seeing the end of, Iowa ACEs 360 released its latest report, and that analyzed Iowa-specific data on adverse childhood experiences. And there's that information right there. So the ACEs score makes sense, hopefully. It just meant how many adverse experiences the people taking the survey had experienced. It found that nearly 2/3 of the adults reported experiencing at least one type of ACEs in their childhood. Now, 16.7% in that red area of Iowa adults report experiencing 4 or more categories of ACEs. And that indicates a significant level of lasting trauma, that switch always being on in their childhood. Now, right here in our community, in our region, county health departments and the Wellbeing Partners released the Mental Health and ACEs Call to Action report that shows similar levels of childhood trauma in our region using data from 2018. So again, just to note, ACEs report was released in 2020. This data that I'm talking about now, 2018, more than 60% of adults, again, in the metro area experienced at least one type of childhood trauma growing up. In Potawatomi County, about 40% of adults reported that they experienced emotional abuse. 30% reported there was substance abuse in the home growing up, and then 25% reported parental separation. And again, just listing the ACEs that I have, I know just folks may think, well, they're not quite equal. One doesn't equal another. And that's not the point of it here. It does, those ACEs did cause ongoing stress of some sort, or they are items that are known to cause ongoing stress. So one may not be equal to another, but they are factors that can create an ongoing stressor in a child's life. ACEs in the workforce. So this is where you come in. We know, of course, because we've been looking at the data and reading the articles, right? And learning the information. This does seep into the workforce. But again, we're here to start sharing with you. There are things that can be done right there at work to help out with that. But first of all, what does this mean with the workforce? Again, just take a look at some of those facts there. The Iowa data itself shows as the number of reported ACEs increases, so as we get into that 3, 4, 5 and above ACEs experienced, so does the risk of major health conditions as well as mental health concerns. The adults who experienced 4 or more ACEs right there at the top are 5 times more likely to have COPD and more than 7 times more likely to experience depression. Because that switch was on, right? That switch was just always on, and maybe they didn't have the resources or the coping mechanisms to turn to help bring that back to a stable state. Data from our local area demonstrated a connection between ACEs and detrimental life circumstances also. So that means with more experiences of ACEs in childhood, again, not everybody, but there was more incidents seen of difficulty into adulthood accessing healthcare, into adulthood having excessive drinking, experiencing domestic partner violence, having rent or mortgage stress, experiencing food insecurity, and just having high daily stress. So imagine if someone had several ACEs in their childhood, right? And into adulthood, they're experiencing one or more of those things I just mentioned, kind of flows right into, of course, there's high daily stress. And now they need to enter the workforce every day, right? And earn a living. So the CDC's research around ACEs has shown a correlation between having high ACEs and increased likelihood of experiencing challenges that can affect their work. Workers, again, right there, have with 4 or more ACEs are 2.4 times more likely to have job problems and to be absent from work, tardy from work. And I think all workplaces experience that, but we as managers and HR people don't necessarily think, oh, maybe there's something else going on that I can support. Next up, of course, they're 3.5 times more likely to abuse substances, which can present itself at work in different ways, and 2.3 times more likely to have relationship problems, which again, sometimes when we hear phrases like this, and this is part of why we wanted to share some information. Sometimes when, as a community, we hear a phrase like relationship problems and we think home life, but we have relationships at work. We have to work on projects together. We get to share in teamwork. But if someone hasn't had the ability to really focus on building that, they may struggle. So business owners, managers, and leads have the opportunity to mitigate this by providing appropriate supportive resources. That's the good news. Stress in your workforce. Those ACEs, understandably, can present as stress. Lost productivity and healthcare spending, we know, right, for a while now, those are among some of the biggest expenses that businesses face today. While some of those losses may be connected to trauma individuals have experienced in the past, the pandemic absolutely is adding on to that, right? And now it's causing a collective trauma. So folks have different experiences that they bring to work, but now we're all experiencing this collective pandemic. And that unquestionably is affecting your employees' health and well-being, and ultimately your company's bottom line. For example, in Iowa in May, 1 in 4 adults reported experiencing anxiety or depression. Again, that was May. That was towards the beginning of it. These challenges impact your costs, as we know. Full-time workers with depression miss more than 4 additional days per year of work due to poor health than those without depression. And again, some of the stuff we're presenting here, again, is the cut and dry, right? They missed work, they were tardy to work. But if we really extend some of that thinking, how is performance at work? And what can we do to support them? This next slide probably has a visual new to folks. You ever thought of your brain as a house with different levels? So we talked about the brain having plasticity, right? That there's flexibility there. Well, there's also different levels. Our brains are not just, they're not static, they're not simple, they're very, very dynamic. So what happens within us is that when our bodies experience a significant level of stress, we respond with a fight, flight, or freeze response. That's it. Those are our choices when there's stress, right? We're not thinking critically. It's an immediate, what do we do response. That level of stress pushes us down into our downstairs reactive part of our brain, or as you see there, places where we might not get along with others. We might lose our temper, again, not be able to think clearly, and we may say or do things impulsively. But when we're calm and we've had that calming period, or we've been able to be in a calm period for a while, and we have the support to stay in that range, we can manage through our stress. We can remain in the upstairs portion of that house. And that allows us to regulate our emotions, set good priorities, set clear priorities, think critically, and build those relationships. And hopefully you can see all those things do relate to work. Setting priorities, thinking critically, creating and completing a project, and having relationships so that those things go as smoothly as possible. Now, adults and kids who have experienced significant levels of trauma in the past may respond to perceived threats, right? Even just a minor stress or a perceived threat, smaller doses of stress with a stronger reaction because their bodies are just ready. They're ready to react to stress. And that pushes them more consistently down to that downstairs brain. Their brains are hardwired to respond that way. At work, this may result in frustration while working on detailed projects, difficulties communicating, lack of focus, and decreased productivity. Now, these things don't happen, I want to stress, These things don't happen because the employee is not capable of more. It's just because their brain is forced to focus on even those minor stresses with that bigger reaction, because that's how it's been conditioned. But again, that doesn't mean that's how it's going to be forever. What contributes to ACEs? And again, adverse childhood experiences. I want to make sure I repeat that, because it takes a while for that to link ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and stay. But in the household, we talked about that a little bit, the abuse, neglect, and so on. It goes even further though. So in our environment, natural disasters, even in Iowa, the derecho, we experience just weather disasters and just all different things. We have, of course, the pandemic, like mentioned, but within communities, within our own community, you think about in Council Bluffs, you have Council Bluffs community, but we're also Iowans and we're also Americans. That whole community, there are different stressors or different things that contribute. The ACEs part of that is just part of the trauma children and adults experience. What surrounds us and is deep within the fabric of our society is listed there, can also contribute to the total trauma people experience. So these kinds of experiences can all contribute to trauma. Experiencing discrimination based on components just of who we are, simply who we are, such as race, sexual orientation, place of birth, disability, or religion, that can contribute. Feeling unsafe in your neighborhood or not trusting an immediate neighbor. Being exposed to community violence, even experiencing bullying, loss of a parent or guardian due to death, and deportation or migration. Those are all things that are happening in our community that add on to the trauma and stress. In our region, there is a significant difference as well of high ACEs by race, age, and socioeconomic level. So ACEs scores, again, this is specific to our area, of 4 or more were more prevalent in adults between the ages of 18 to 44 and among the African American segment of our community. Always important to know the facts so we can know next step, how do we address and how do we help? So we're moving on to that. What do we do, right? We are dynamic, we are changing, we can help each other. Thinking about the significant challenges or those lemons that exist in our community, we all have the opportunity to turn those lemons into something sweeter, providing supports, investing in the well-being of your employees and their families leads to better results for your organization and then the community as a whole. You can turn those lemons into lemonade. Starts by recognizing how some policies and systems create conditions that can make it difficult for families to thrive, and knowing that this stress can take a toll, not only on the individual, but also on their family and on the entire community. Research on resilience, though, gives us a recipe for helping individuals cope and thrive despite trauma. Not everyone who smokes is going to get lung cancer, and just the same, not everyone who experiences trauma or toxic stress will have difficulty throughout their lives. A lot of factors play into a person's ability to overcome that adversity, including, this is where we come in, supportive relationships. And again, similar to communication, right? We think about communication being at home, partnerships being at home. No, relationships are in the workplace. We have a relationship with the team that we're working with on a project. From manager to employee, there is a relationship and communication that's always happening there. Also helpful in overcoming is access to health and mental health services, and just developing healthy coping strategies. Must remember that individuals who have experienced significant trauma are already resilient. They've already built up some of their own coping mechanisms, but we absolutely can help further that. So just by being where they are today shows that they are resilient. So the focus is really on building that existing strength they have, or the ingredients that they already have, and providing the wraparound support or the sweetener we all need to thrive through the challenges we face in life. And again, everyone faces challenges, everyone faces stress. So the great news is everyone can benefit from added support, resources, and coping mechanisms. And again, just to repeat what I mentioned before, don't worry, immediate sweeping changes are not required to make a difference. You can start first by checking your current policies at work. Do your employees have time readily available to them to address personal responsibilities or life events? Because a lot of times those personal responsibilities, life events, things that, those don't come up 6 months ahead where we can schedule and plan for those. Those come up pretty last minute. Do you encourage your employees to be healthy? I think Alicia was mentioning a little bit something about that earlier. Are your employees aware of who to talk to if they're struggling? And again, this isn't just about the EAP and mental health. That is very important. But what if they're struggling with their schedules? What if they're struggling on a project or with their work responsibilities? Do you feel confident that they know who they can talk to about that? I'm going to give you a few ways that you can help out. And that next one you see, investing in community well-being. When you invest in your employees and their well-being, in supportive efforts to improve community health, studies show that your businesses can see these benefits. You're seen as a good corporate citizen, you save money, you improve productivity because again, staff and employees, they feel safer and more supported at work. And then you build the type of community that will retain and draw new talent. Those are some great business terms, right? Retain that talent. You've brought them in and trained them. Now you can support them and retain them and have less turnover and less expense related to that. There are three main areas today where you can respond moving forward that we're going to talk about. And in each of those areas, we're going to offer different strategies for you to consider. We encourage you to think about one or two strategies that make sense for you now. So please know, this is not a laundry list, right? We've had probably enough of those over the last year. This is just a grouping of suggestions, and pick one or two that resonate with you now, and absolutely you can build upon those later. So first up, boosting employee well-being. And yes, that healthy hometowns that Alicia mentioned, that may be a great way to start. There, can't ask for more. Those two things presented in the same day to you, right? The same lunch and learn. But boosting that employee well-being is a big step. You can focus on the health and well-being of your employees by practicing and encouraging. We talked about self-care, building a culture that promotes positive relationships and empathy, connecting employees to services in the community and within your own business if you have them, and ensuring employees earn enough to meet the needs of themselves and their families. So we talked about food insecurity and housing, rent and mortgage being a pain point for folks and a stress point. Are your folks making enough to meet those needs? So think back to your own lemonade stand and your own support. What helps you cope with stressful times in your life? Now discuss that with your management team, with your HR, and when you're ready with your staff, and perhaps you can take some of their suggestions and put them to use. Excuse me. But as you see there, Family Inc. of Council Bluffs was awarded a $1,000 grant because they created a wellness committee. And I'm guessing, I haven't seen, of course, excuse me, their wellness committee notes, but I'm guessing it mirrors quite a bit of that healthy hometowns that Lisa was talking about. Model and encourage that self-care. I know in other meetings recently on this topic, of course, we talk about as managers and HR people, gosh, right, we need to take some time to ourselves too, right? So our staff can see that it's okay to do that. And train your managers on trauma-informed responses. Next up, excuse me for just a moment. Okay, thank you. Next up, you can also invest in efforts in the community that in turn provide support to your employees and their families. Supporting the Lemonade for Life initiative, of course, is one way you can do that. So we encourage you to share this information and encourage others to learn. Just become educated. That's the first step.
Yes, much appreciated.
Take care, sir.
So we encourage you to share that information. There are some examples up there too. Food drives, coat drives, book drives, right? We've all done some of those. That's a great way to get your employees involved, get them involved in collecting those items and then in delivering. You may find people who never worked together within your business now are working together on these projects. And you know what? Volunteering and giving is a great way for people to build their self-esteem and their self-worth and their confidence. Do that together as a team at work. That's a great way to build your social responsibility and build your teamwork at the same time. Like Panda Express and Panda Cares Foundation there donated books just this past fall to the Boys and Girls Club locally. And thirdly, live your company's values, right? I'm sure there was time spent putting together what are your company's values and why. So as an organization that values your employees and wants to see them be healthy and able to support their families, we encourage you to review your policies and systems to make sure those values are reflected in your actions. Next, right? Next level. Do your policies need updating, or would reminders about your policies being in place, would reminders to your staff be helpful even? And consider the role that you play in setting the culture and sharing those values. So review your policies now. Are they still timely with everything going on? Are they available and accessible to all your staff? Again, we're dynamic. Are they helpful to your whole staff? And practice compassionate leadership. This was a sample voting leave policy of one of our local community, our school districts, sorry. So obviously teachers, they have a pretty full day, right? They made sure, I'm sure they're saying, we want you to be responsible citizens. And one way they're sharing that value and encouraging it, they have this voting leave policy. They get paid time off to go vote. So again, simple things you can do with what you have now or what is easily accessible, okay? And finally, creating that resilient workforce. It matters not only for your team, but also for their families. And when they are supported and valued, and when your employees are comfortable that everything at home is good, everything, at work they're supported, they can come to work and they can better focus on needs of their families, and the healthy development of their children, and their duties at work, being on time, talking openly with management, with HR, adjusting as needed. That helps in all areas, getting to work more consistently, focusing, communicating, all of that. It also increases productivity and employee retention, even adds to employee referrals, referring new staff, right? That's a great benefit. That cuts down on the cost of searching for staff. It decreases the cost of lost work, decreases the cost of restaffing and onboarding. And addressing these factors lays the foundation for a healthier and more productive workforce in the future. So again, that visual is just to show, ACEs starts in childhood, but it really affects throughout life, and it really affects our role in our community, at home, at work, and everywhere we are in the community. So there you go, your take action, last step of today at least. Hope this information has been helpful. Hope it's inspired you to think about your workforce with a new lens. Those are dynamic folks bringing not only home a little bit with them every day, but bringing their past experiences with them every day. And we are all a part of helping them shape their present and their future. With every lemon kind of situation we face, we have the opportunity to make lemonade. It takes all of us bringing the ingredients for our resilient community, and we can create that lemonade party in our region. And there are the next steps. That was a lot, I know. So thank you so much for sticking with me there. Any questions or feedback? Oh, great, Jen. I see you were board chair for local homeless shelter. Yes. So ACEs at that homeless shelter was an average of 4.1 among clients. So that's a clear example of how those ACEs into adulthood affected them. And yeah, in addition to questions, anyone have any experience with work with ACEs or with information surrounding ACEs?
Hey, Karen, this is Jen. I actually sent you a message in the chat personally, but I was actually board chair for a local homeless shelter, and our ACEs score on average from our clients was 4.1. So it was over 4. So
yeah, absolutely. And we, especially this past year, from my understanding, this is a fabulous group. I was kind of peeking, just I logged on to, what a fabulous group. So thank you. But you're all busy people, right? You have your work, your to-dos, and we all do it. We jump in. And if there's something that happens with work, we're not always looking at it from the lens of, gosh, why is that person coming to me? Especially if maybe it's someone who, has been a solid staff member for quite some time. Well, gosh, maybe it's something that we need to help support. But even when, specific occurrences don't happen, if you help support your staff as a whole and bring them together and give them that really strong environment, that helps when there are struggles. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Karen. And there's a couple of questions in the chat. This recording will be posted on our website under our Workforce Lunch and Learn tab within the week. And you guys will receive an email from me with the presentation that Karen shared with you today, with my presentation, and with some information about the bank. So you will definitely be getting that contact information for everybody involved here. And then of course, if you have any questions, please let us know. And as Karen said, we are just rolling out the information that she presented today. So we would love some feedback from you. Please let us know if that was helpful, if you learned something today, and if this is something that you would like to present to any organizations that you're involved in or to your company. We would love to get this in front of as many people as possible. Knowledge is power, and we really want people to know how to help their associates thrive in life so that they thrive at work and in the community. So please, if you can right now, unmute yourself, just give us a little bit of feedback, that'd be great. Or if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, we'll be wrapping up this lunch and learn here shortly.
Tim, do you have a location that you're at? I like to document my business contacts, and I'm not sure. I know you said you were in Nebraska. So I'm just wondering what the hub would be, if that makes sense, for an address that I can input for a business contact. I'm imagining there's more than one building, so I just want to know the correct address. Hopefully that makes sense.
I will try to get that for you, Ashley. I know that Charlene just put some contact information in the chat box there, but we'll definitely try to make sure that we get you the actual address, the physical address of where they're located.
Right. Okay. Well, with the Workforce Initiative Act, we want to make sure that we document these awesome types of open forums. So I want to make sure that him and the bank are included in that.
Thank you very much for that. Does anybody else have any questions or any feedback about the presentation today?
Hi, this is Brad Ekwereku. I really do appreciate the information and walking through. I work for an organization called the Learning Community of Douglas and Sarpy County, and it specifically focuses on families and particularly early childhood education, things, programs, measures, outcomes, things like that. So I'm looking at this in a couple different ways. Number one, the staff that we have, and it's probably less than 10. But some of the programs and staffs that we have within those are larger. And I'm thinking about ways to either intersect or almost intake staff members on a regular basis to check in with them. I guess my question would be, what does consistent check-in, or I hate to call it case management, or ongoing efforts to continue to check in with them per their, let's call it ACE health or ACE score health, moving forward, to track some of those mental and emotional episodes or events or improvements or declines. So that's number one. Number two is, how can I play a role in extending this idea and or subsequent services or follow-ups with families, because we have a number of families that we partner with throughout a number of programs. And then overall, the big silver bullet, if you have 3 silver bullets, I'd like the third one to be named something that, how can we get ahead of this if we can? I know that we can control a whole lot of environmental things within our own home. I don't know if you can or not. I need to know that personally, but then in the different environments in which you work and play and worship and eat and all that kind of stuff, like how can we be mindful of doing what how can I be mindful of doing what I need to do to not only positively impact my trajectory, but then to help in the environment as well. It's a whole lot, and I'm sorry I dumped it all, but I've been waiting a long time to jump in.
No, I appreciate it. And I love the questions. This is exactly why we're getting started, to first of all find out what questions there are, right? Because I can promise you, and Alicia can back me up on this, we have been brainstorming what are people going to want to know for months. But this is why we're rolling out. So I can give you the starts to some answers, hopefully. As far as that check-in with staff, as you all might imagine, right? This people are forthcoming, or they're private, or they're somewhere in between, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to push that, certainly. And I think you already know that. I mean, in the line of work that you do, you already know that. But even just having those regular check-ins and keeping them on the calendar, right? Because that's an easy one to say, we can move that, we can bump that. Keeping those on the calendar, that will help people know their importance. And just maybe not having such a structured approach to those, and maybe let them be staff-led, to the level of their own comfort. Things will present themselves as much as the staff is comfortable. So having the check-ins, just first of all, and keeping them on the calendar, that's a huge step. And it doesn't seem like it, but a lot of companies don't do that. So do that. They'll give you feedback. They'll get more and more comfortable, trust me, with feedback.
I want to say, if I may add to that,
please.
because I hear what he's saying, and I'm one that likes to be included. And
Yeah.
until recently, haven't really had check-ins. But the other thing I think is important to remember is to not manipulate your way out of that meeting. Because I'm finding that, like, in all reality, like, since it needs to be put as more of a priority than what it is. Because if I have let's say a counselor and a job candidate I'm meeting with, I might bump my supervisor, and she totally, understands. But at the same time, there again is another week or week and a half of no communication. So for me, it's really I run my own program, but I'm still a staff member, right? I still have a supervisor. For me, it's hard to devote that time. So I'm working on making it not only inclusive in like all my calendars, but to know the importance of keeping it. So Bradley, that's what I could see too, is making sure like it takes precedence somewhat over some things.
And different companies
Right.
have different
Thank
policies.
you.
Sometimes companies say no meetings, Fridays afternoon. If there's something where, I don't know the full dynamics, obviously, Bradley, of your organization, but it's helpful to everyone. Is there a time that you just want to set aside for one-on-ones so folks can get those done? What works for you? And for families, again, that's kind of the next area that we're going into with our work with Lemonade for Life. But again, some of the things now with this information and kind of where we are now that would help. That last, the corporate, being a responsible corporate citizen, right? Those lovely tag phrases. But getting involved in the community, if you have something, of course, beyond, the drives are the easiest that come up just because they are very important, the supply drives for some of our local organizations. But you can go beyond that. You can pretty soon, hopefully, there are still ways to volunteer somewhat in person or one-on-one, even by Zoom. You can also build that to maybe family events or supporting family through, family picnics when we can open back up to that, right? This is a really tough time, but again, hopefully we're getting closer to that. And some of the family messaging we will be getting out in the coming months, hopefully will be helpful. So watch definitely for the Lemonade for Life name to come up, and we'll be sharing here more often too. But you creating events that will include families as well, or initiatives, but also when you start having that support of your staff members, they'll bring that home, right? So just like they bring home stuff to work, they absolutely bring work stuff home too. So small steps first, and you absolutely feel free to educate us on what is working for you. We would love that once you start trying some of these things, let us know what worked, and how you maybe tweaked it, and we can share that too. This is really a community effort, and we really just wanted to get that started, right? And then finally, how do you get ahead of this, right? Was that the third one? And then let me just say a couple of things, and then I'm sure other folks have more information on this. Getting ahead of it, I think with your staff one-on-ones, with letting them know what's available in the community. I think, Alicia, there's segments of the chamber, sorry, the chamber's website that has some community resources. If you feel free sharing those at work. I know one of the places that I worked, I would say within the last, trying to think, it was about 5 years ago, we did have, we really had a push with the wellness team, right? And the focus 1 month was mental wellness. So we talked about self-care, and they also handed very discreet cards with local resources for mental health. And it was really, here they handed out to everybody. So it wasn't a question of take it or not in front of the whole group. It was just part of the packet that they handed to everybody. And it was something someone could easily and subtly take with them. So really, it's just those small things. No need to overwhelm with a total revamping. Just start including little supports along the way, and that will definitely help. But what other suggestions, please? What other suggestions? Ashley, I know you jumped in, thank you. Okay, connections.
The agency I work for is Connections Area Agency on Aging.
Oh.
And something I think that was awesome about what they did was not only geared towards helping me, but helping our families, which is having a week's worth of HelloFresh meals. So it not only incorporated the staff, but it incorporated the company, family, family as well.
Right,
so
okay.
I thought that was an awesome idea because right now we're pretty much still working remotely. So it showed
Yeah.
appreciation for us. Like I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. It's to some it might seem little, but to show that appreciation not only for you, but then to help your family too. That's like a double hitter right there.
That's a great idea. Again, I know of another organization that provided, a certain amount in Grubhub right early on during the pandemic. So yes, great example. Support them at home. And in ways, it looks like, each of those, the Grubhub, the meals, those are ways that people can customize too.
Yeah.
Not cookie cutter. But Bradley, did that help?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you all. Those are great. I'm sitting here processing and hearing and kind of theming them out in my mind and categorizing. And I'm hearing a lot of just basic need. It's tending to all of those survival type things to make sure all of those are placed, and then we can build from there. So I'm receiving all of them and taking copious notes here. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Thanks for the great questions.
Yes, thank you. And again, guys, we are going to send out this information to you so you can share that. We have talked about potentially recording this presentation so that it is something that you can share with your colleagues and in the community. And just so you know, we really are working, especially at the chamber and with different collaborations on what can we do as a community to help support our community, to help support the residents that live in our neighborhoods and that come to work with us every day so that we can all thrive. So again, the 712 initiative has started working with Wellmark, and we are going to have a healthy hometown work site committee soon. And we would love for you guys to participate in that. There's going to be some great information and just some small things. Again, like Karen said, we aren't trying to make these huge tasks for you guys to do. These are small things that we can implement immediately in our workplaces that will really benefit everybody. And at the end of the day, they will save us all money because we will be a healthier community. We will have healthier workers working for us. So we are going to send that information out to you, and any questions that you guys have or any suggestions, please feel free to respond back to that email and give those to us, because we are looking to make sure that this is as useful as it possibly can be before we present it to others. And with that, unless anybody has any additional questions or comments, I think that we'll go ahead and close this month's Lunch and Learn. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank our sponsors again, Charter West Bank. I know that their contact information is in the chat room, but you will receive that in the slide as well. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Thanks, everyone.